Thank you. Good evening to all of you. I see Arun Chajed. The today topic is tax invoice for intermediate GST. Let us start the topic. So good evening to all the participants as well. Fine. So we can start. Coverage of the today topic is the tax invoice, debit and credit note, prohibition of unauthorized collection of tax, and amount of the tax to be indicated in the tax invoice. We will also discuss in the tax invoice, there are multiple type of the or categories of the document: revised tax invoice, consolidated tax invoice, bill of supply, receipt voucher, payment voucher, refund voucher, delivery challenge. And also I have given the MCQ and as well as theory question, approx 18-19 question are there, which we will also solve during the class. So now we are starting the tax invoice. Wherever it is applicable, I will come to the definition and in the during the chapter 1. So 31, section 31 is the main section for the tax invoice. Fine. One minute. Fine. Sunil Dubey, I will definitely clear your doubt, but at the end, and Jayendra Kumar, I will also discuss your problem, but at the end of this chapter, not now. Okay. First, we will focus on the today topic, and then end, I will discuss the problem with respect to the registration chapter. A registered person supplying the taxable goods. So 31(1) is applicable for goods and 31(2) is applicable for services. Shall before or at the time of issue the tax invoice. From here, one question is clear, or you can answer one question whether we are legally authorized, legally permitted to issue the tax invoice in advance. Repeating the sentence, can I issue the invoice in advance before the supply? Answer would be yes. 31(1) giving the confirmation I can issue the invoice either before or at. It is the maximum last date by which I have to issue the tax invoice. The first is removal of the goods for the supply to the recipient, where the supply involves the movement of the goods. Now, what is the last date to issue the tax invoice for supply of the goods? What is the last date to issue the tax invoice for supply of goods? Divided in two parts. The part 1 is if the goods involve the movement, whether there is a movement of the goods, answer is yes or answer is no. If answer is yes, then date on or before the date of the removal of the goods. On or before the time of the removal of the goods, that would be the last date to issue the tax invoice. And if there is no movement happen, then delivery of the goods or making available thereof to the recipient. In any other case means there is no involvement of movement. Can anybody tell me any example where the movement of the goods will not be there in case of the supply of the goods, where the movement of the goods would not be there? Give me one example. Because I hope this topic you have already discussed. You have discussed this topic. You have already discussed this topic. So please confirm any example where there is a supply of the goods, but which does not involve the movement. No involvement of the movement. Sale of land, sale of immovable property. I'm asking the question to all of you. Please be active in the chat. I will issue the tax invoice at the time of removal of the goods where the supply involve the movement, and if the supply does not involve the movement, then at the time of delivery of the goods. Oh my God. Whether supply of land, sale of land, or sale of the completed building can be the example. Please answer me this question. Whether sale of land and completed building can be the example of B, where there is a supply of the goods, but it does not involve the movement. Sir, please give me the answer. Is it possible that I can give the example land and completed building for the clause B? Answer would be no. Why no? Go back and see, check the definition of goods. Go and see the definition of the goods. Goods means every kind of the movable property. If the property is immovable, it cannot be the supply of the goods. And if it cannot be the supply of the goods, it cannot be covered here. It cannot be the example of the clause B. Whether land building is a goods, answer is no. Whether land building is a goods, answer is no. Then what can be the perfect example for this clause B? I do agree. I'm fully convinced with the Sandeep Sandhu. Suppose I am a job worker and you are my principal. I'm giving one example. You are my principal, I am a job worker. You told me that please do the job working for a particular goods. And I need capital goods. For example, plant and machinery, but I do not have the sufficient amount. So you have given me plant and machinery on rent. Now after 6 months, I have purchased that plant and machinery from you. When I am purchasing after 6 months, is it a supply the goods? Answer is yes. Whether this supply will involve the movement? Answer is no. Second example, suppose there is one institute and Institute of Chartered Accountant of India has purchased that building. That whether land and building can be the example of goods? Answer is no, because goods means every kind of the movable property. But at the same time, the institute has purchased furniture and fixtures, air condition, projector, inverter, fan, light. These all are movable and therefore it is a goods. And after the supply, when the complete building is purchased, all the item is also being purchased by the institute. It will be considered that there is a supply of the furniture, etc., but there is no movement of the goods. Is it clear to all? Kindly confirm. Krishna, I'm able to see your question. I'm able to see your reply. Jendra Kumar, I also able to. Sure. You all are my student. I can take everyone in, but just because might be there are so many reply, that is the only reason. Is it clear to all? Kindly confirm. Now I'm moving to the further part. Issue the tax invoice showing the description, quantity, and the value, the tax charge thereon, and such other particular as may be prescribed. Whenever there is a word prescribed is there, we have to refer the respective rule. So for this, we will refer the rule 46. For this, we will refer the rule 46. Further, provided government has the power by notification can specify the category of the goods in which tax invoice shall be issued within such time and such manner as may be prescribed. So we will go and see the time limit. We will go and see the time limit in the rule 47 and in the manner which is being given in the rule 48. So from this subsection 1, we have been clarified that we need to refer the rule 46, rule 47, and rule 48. Nidhi Parikh, you mean to say if I am purchasing the land and building, is it a movable item? Sir, plant and machinery cannot be the part of the immovable goods. Vrinda Agrawal. So there is some doubt. Let me answer. Vrinda Agrawal, plant and machinery is a goods or is a movable or not movable? First confirm. Suppose I purchase the machinery and assume that it is I can shift machinery from one location to the another location. It is movable. And because it is movable, when I am selling this particular fine, no problem. I'll repeat again. Clause A is talking about, say, I'm giving two examples, whether the goods involve the movement or whether the goods does not involve the movement. There are two possibilities, correct? What is the example for movement of the goods? Every examples, but I purchase something, any item. I have purchased, say, biscuit. I purchase certain goods. Everything is covered in the clause A. And what is the last day to issue the invoice? Supplier has to issue the tax invoice before the removal, on or before the removal of the goods. Clause B is talking about, suppose goods does not involve the movement. Example, I have purchased this building. Building cannot be the example for goods, because when we refer the definition of the goods, it talk about only movable item. But along with in the building itself, there are certain items which I have also purchased. I have given the example. And by what time they will issue the tax invoice? The time when they are making the delivery or making available to me, that will be the last day to issue the tax invoice. Is it clear? Tanu and Vrinda Agrawal. Vrinda, this point is correct. We can shift, then it is movable. If it is not shiftable, then it is immovable. I'm talking about the 31(1), all the example of the goods wherein it is involving the movement or does not involve the movement. Is it okay? Tanu, kindly confirm. A registered person supplying the taxable services. If it is fixed and does not have the feature of the movable, it is fixed to the earth, then it is immovable property. I'm not talking about that kind of the example. That would not, because if the particular item is not movable, it cannot be the goods. Time of supply chapter has been completed. Time of supply chapter has been completed. Fine. Registered person supplying the taxable services shall before or after the provision of the service but within prescribed period. Now I hope it is clear. Here also the word before it is written. Here also the word before it is written. It means in case of the services, I can issue the invoice even before the supply or after the provision of the supply, that is service, but within a prescribed period. We will go and see what is the time limit to issue the tax invoice in case of the services. Showing the description, value, tax charge and other particular as may be prescribed. Again, we will refer the rule 46 for content particular, rule 47 for time limit, and rule 48, the manner of issuance of invoice. These three rules are very, very important. We will discuss in some time. It says that provided that government may on the recommendation of council by notification. So they can issue the notification and they can specify the category of the services in respect of which tax invoice shall be issued within such time and such manner as may be prescribed. Next, subject to the condition mentioned therein, specify the category of the services in respect of which any other document issued in relation to the supply shall be deemed to be the tax invoice. Now, here we will discuss the example. What are those scenario in which instead of the tax invoice, any other document can be issued, and that will be tantamount, that will be considered as tax invoice. That we will discuss. Shivam, after some time, we will read the rule 46 for content, rule 47 for time limit, rule 48 for manner. These three rules we are going to discuss. And tax invoice is not at all required to be issued. Now we will going to 31 subsection 3. Just wait for some time. We will complete this part regarding the time limit to issue the tax invoice or content and manner. First point, there is no prescribed format for the tax invoice. No prescribed format. Only certain field has been prescribed in the rule 46. So what the content has to be there on the tax invoice? There is no fixed format. You can fix your format as per your choice, but certain content is there which has to be mentioned on the tax invoice. Now, time limit to issue the tax invoice for goods, that is on or before the removal, but for services, we will discuss. Normally it is 30 days. Sometime it can be 45 days and sometime it can be quarterly also. For services, 3 time limit we will discuss. Normally 30 days. In some case it can be the 45 days and in some case it can be the quarterly also. We will discuss. So normally in case of the supply the service, we need to issue within 30 days. We need to issue the tax invoice within 30 days. Normally, for example, I am providing the teaching to you and this is a supply the service. I will issue the invoice on or before, and I can issue the invoice in before or within 30 days also. Then it can be the 45 days in case of the insurance, banking company, financial institution and NBFC. In case of the insurance, banking company, financial institution and NBFC. In these 4 cases, invoice can be issued instead of the 30 days. It can be issued within 45 days also. Now the third is quarterly. An insurance or banking company or financial institution, including NBFC, and please note, telecom operator is new in this clause. Telecom operator is new in this clause, or any other class of the supply the service as may be notified, making taxable supply the service between distinct person as specified in section 25. Can anybody tell me what is the meaning of distinct person? Can anybody tell? Answer is, if say suppose insurance company located in Delhi, insurance company located in Mumbai, same insurance company, they will have the same permanent account number but two different GST number. In Delhi it will be the separate GST number, in Mumbai it will be the separate GST number. And suppose they are making the supply from Delhi to Mumbai or Mumbai to Delhi, and in that case, if they are providing the supply, it will be called as a supply between distinct person. Here we are talking about only services, not goods. Here we are talking about services. If the service is being supplied between distinct person, then tax invoice may be issued before or at the time when supplier record the same in the books of accounts, or before the expiry of the quarter during which the supply was made. Vrinda, right? Normal invoice, which is we are issuing in day-to-day life. Yes, that is the tax invoice. Absolutely correct, Inderpal. Person registered with same PAN. So now we are clear that normally in case of the services, invoice has to be issued within 30 days. And in case of the banking, insurance, financial institution and NBFC, 45 days. And in case of the distinct person, same. Insurance, banking, financial institution, NBFC, including telecom operator. Including telecom operator, if they are providing the supply between distinct person, they can supply, and invoice can be issued either at the time of such supplier record the same in the books of accounts, or before the expiry of the quarter during which the supply was made. All are correct. Rekha Kumari, Namrata, Rohan, Indrapal, everyone is correct with respect to the distinct person. Thank you. Till now, is it clear? We have discussed about the time limit for the goods. We have discussed about the time limit of services. Is it clear till now? Any question? Please ask. Now we are talking about what is the meaning of the continuous supply of the goods. What is the meaning of the continuous supply of service? These 2 points we have to discuss, and then we will discuss the time limit to issue the invoice. In case of the continuous supply of the goods, means supply of the goods which is provided or agreed to be provided continuously or on recurrent basis under a contract, whether or not by means of wire, cable, pipeline or other conduits, and for which the supplier invoice the recipient on a regular or periodically basis, and include the supply of the such goods as the government, subject to such condition, it may notify. So we are providing on a regular basis. Regular basis, not necessary that it has to be through wire or cable. No, not necessary. If it is a supply of the goods, then what is the time limit to issue the invoice? Different. And what is the meaning of the continuous supply of the service? Please note one thing, that if I ask you the difference between the continuous supply of the goods and continuous supply of the service, there has to be the continuity for a period of more than 3 months, then only the service would be called as a continuous. Continuous supply of the service which is provided or agreed to be provided on a continuous or a recurrent basis under a contract for a period of exceeding 3 months. Suppose Mr. A, who is a contractor, he has received the construction contract for constructing the building, then probably this work would goes 1 year. In that case, the work contract service provided by Mr. A to the promoter is called as a continuous supply of the service. Absolutely, Rekha. So during which I have issued by end of this quarter, I have to issue the tax invoice. So that if you are assuming that service has been rendered on 6th June, invoice has to be issued on 30th June. Coming back to the provision which talks about this continuous supply. Now, section 31 subsection 3 is pending. 31 subsection 3 is pending. I will come back, just complete continuous supply of the goods and continuous supply of service. Right, Rohit. There is no condition of continuity of 3 months in case of the continuous supply of the goods. That is the difference. For saying continuous supply of the goods, there is no requirement of continuity for how much period. But in case of the service, it is necessary. It is necessary that it should be for a period of more than 3 months. Now, Sushil Kumar is asking distinct person. So distinct person, I hope it is clear. And one more participant has asked the question that it is not clear for distinct time limit to issue the tax invoice in case of the distinct person. Let me repeat this part once again. The meaning of distinct person has been defined in section 25, subsection 4 and subsection 5. My voice is slow. Is there any problem in my voice? Is there any problem in my voice? No, I think. Khushbu, please check at your end once again. So what is the meaning of the distinct person? So meaning of the distinct person is one PAN, multiple GSTIN. For example, Arun Chajad, I doing the business in Delhi, in Maharashtra, in Karnataka, then I would have the same PAN for complete PAN India. Correct. I would have the PAN which is applicable for the every part of the taxable territory. But if I am doing the business from Delhi, if I am doing the business from Mumbai, from Karnataka, I have to take separate registration. Then these registration GST number would be called as a distinct person. Second point. Then what is the provision? So it is not applicable for every case. They are saying if banking company, financial institution, NBFC, insurance and telecom. Telecom is new, additionally is being there in this clause. What is the time limit to issue the tax invoice? They are having the option that either before or at the time such supply record the same in the books of accounts or before the expiry of the quarter during which supply was made. So either before the quarter or at the time when he record the same in his books of accounts as refer the 31 subsection 4. Sorry, there was small problem in the internet connectivity. I hope it is okay. Ayaji, is it okay? Fine. So let me repeat once again. In case of the continuous supply of the goods, where successive statement of the account or payment are involved, the invoice shall be issued before or at the time each statement is issued, or as the case may be, payment is being received. I can say whichever is earlier. Now, if it is a continuous supply of the service, then what is the time limit to issue the invoice? This part has been divided in 3 subclause. Clause A, clause B, and clause C. Now, situation 1. Recall that example. Mr. A is a contractor. He has received. Mr. A is a contractor and he has received the work for construction of the building. Mr. A providing the work contract service. What is the time limit to issue? Decide what is the due date of the payment, then invoice shall be issued on or before the due date. It is immaterial whether payment is being actually received, then actual payment. Third, if the payment is linked to the completion of an event, might be the contractor has been given the task that if you complete the first floor, then I will give you 20%. When you complete the second floor, I will give you additional 20%. I can say that now this payment is linked to the completion of an event. Once the event is completed, then the invoice has to be issued. Now, is it okay? Vedant, Nitin, is it okay now? So continuous supply of the goods and continuous supply of the service. We have completed what is the continuous supply of the goods and service meaning, and after that we have discussed what is the time limit to issue the invoice. For goods, what is the time limit to issue the invoice? Successive statement of the accounts or payment when it is being received or in a statement has been issued. If we are talking about goods, then we have discussed, and if we are talking about services, then there are 3 clause. Clause A is talking about Vivek, is it okay? Vivek. Sure, I will explain the third point once again. So first, if the due date of the payment is ascertainable, then the invoice is to be issued on or before the due date of the payment. If not ascertainable, then when actually receive the payment. And third clause is saying that when the payment is linked to the completion of an event, like talk about works contract service. Mr. A has received the work contract service for construction of a building. His payment is linked to the completion of event. Like if the first floor is being completed, you will entitle for 20% payment. Once second floor is completed, you will be entitled to additional 10%. Then in that case, we can say if the payment is linked, if the payment is linked to the completion of an event, the invoice has to be issued on or before the date of completion of that event. Continue, Nidhi Parekh. It should be in continuity. It should be in continuity. Sandeep, the meaning of the successive statement of the account. For example, I am providing the supply of the goods in the organization. Any example on a continuous basis. In that case, so the company is saying after the gap of the 15 days, please issue the statement of the accounts, whatever the amount is being due. So this will be called as a successive statement of account. Is it okay? Fine. 31 subsection 6 says, example of continuous service. Perfect example is work contract. Sorry. Still. Okay, maybe it is because of NAT only. I'll check again. Now we are moving to the 31 subsection 6. It says that where the supply the service cease under a contract before the completion of supply, the invoice has to be issued at the time when the supply cease, and such invoice shall be issued to the extent of the supply made. Suppose I have received the contract for 1 year. Giving the example for subsection 6, I have received the contract for 1 year, but after 2 months, the supplier is saying, or some event are occurring by which we have to stop that work. I have received the contract for 1 year. After 2 months, some situation are such, or my customer is saying that no, we cannot continue. So my contract is ceased to be before completion, it has been stopped. In that case, whatever the work is being completed, I have to issue at the time when the supply cease, and such invoice shall be issued to the extent of the supply made before such suggestion. So I have completed certain portion of the supply for 2 months. Then whatever the service I have provided, I have to issue the tax invoice for 2 months. Which part, Vedant? 3 महीने के बाद 15 दिन बाद सप्लाई किया तो कंटिन्यूस माना जाएगा या नहीं? Is it this point you are talking about? Say I have received the contract for completing the building, and the contract is saying that you will complete the building in 1 year. So in this case, it is to be treated as a continuous supply the service. Might be I have completed the work for 1 month, and after that I have taken the gap of 15 days. Again, I have started. See, main factor would be the agreement. Vedant, kindly confirm. And successive statement of account. It means, for example, I need to provide the supply of the goods on a regular basis in your office. Might be Mr. A is providing the supply of the goods on a continuous basis in your office. Normally, if you see practically, if you see this transaction, then after a gap of the 15 days or after a gap of 7 days, the supplier is being asked to submit the statement of account. In that case, on a periodically basis, he has to submit the statement of the account. It is called as a successive statement of account. Vrinda and Vedant, kindly confirm. Kavya, yes, I'm getting your comment, but no, I'm not getting your comment. I'm not getting your comment. This is the first comment I can see. Supriya, you are talking to me that please speak in English. You are saying to me. There was a conversation with the technical part. That is the only part which I have talked in Hindi, but every study component I am talking in English only. Fine. So what is the 31 subsection 7? Sales on approval. Sales on approval. Notwithstanding anything contained where the goods is being sent or taken on approval or written are removed before the supply taken place, the invoice can be issued before or at the time of the supply or 6 months, whichever is earlier. Now, the situation is, can I issue the invoice? Situation is, can I issue the invoice? Can I issue the invoice after the supply? See, point, try to understand this point. Try to understand this point. Let me explain on the whiteboard. 31 subsection 1 says that you have to issue the invoice on or before the removal of the goods. On or before the removal of the goods. Now I am saying 31 subsection 7 says, in case of the sales on approval, in case of the sales on approval, you can issue the invoice. You can issue the invoice either at the time of the supply or 6 months from the date of the removal, whichever is earlier. Very, very important. In multiple place, you will find this clause that if the time limit of 6 months is being expired, it will be treated as a supply. Relevance of 31.7. Normally 31.1 is saying that you have to issue the tax invoice on or before the removal of the goods. Matter closed. But can I delay the invoice? Suppose I'm removing the goods right now. Can I delay? Yes, you can delay. There is one provision in 31 subsection 7 which talks about, suppose today on, say for example, 22nd March, you are sending the goods to Mr. A. And Mr. A saying, once I receive the goods, I will check. If it is accepted, then I will consider. Otherwise, I will return the goods. In that case, supplier can issue the invoice once Mr. A has given the consent. Once Mr. A has given the consent or 6 months, whichever is earlier, meaning thereby I can wait maximum for a period of 6 months, not beyond that. 31 subsection 1 tax invoice include the revised invoice. Now the 31A, section 31A saying facility of the digital payment to the recipient. Government on the recommendation of the council prescribe the class of the registered person who shall prescribe the mode of the electronic payment to the recipient of supply the goods or services or both made by him, and give the option to recipient to make the payment accordingly in such manner, such condition, such restriction as may be prescribed. We will discuss in some time. This is basically to promote the digital payment. This section is being introduced to promote the digital payment. So we have completed this time limit. Yes, we have completed this time limit also. 31.6, 31.7 is being completed. Yes. Now we need to understand what should be the content of the tax invoice, rule 46. Name and address and GST number of the supplier. Conjugative serial number not exceeding 16 character. It can be in multiple series containing alpha, numerical or special character. Numeric. So for example, A123 invoice number. Is it okay? Yes. Okay. No problem. So A123 Star, is it okay? Answer is no, not okay. Why not okay? You can add the special character, but please note only two special character, hyphen or dash and slash. Either you can add this special character or you can add slash. Only two special character are allowed in the invoice and any combination thereof. So either you can keep completely alphabetic, completely numerical, completely special character, or any combination thereof. But it should be unique for a financial year. It should be unique for a financial year. You cannot duplicate, you cannot use the same number in the same financial year once again. You cannot repeat the invoice which you have already issued in the same financial year. Then date of issue of invoice. Then if recipient is registered, then name, address and GSTIN or UIN. And if the recipient is unregistered, now if it is unregistered, then they have divided in two parts. They have divided in two parts. Vrinda, you have the option in this case. If you are talking about sales on approval, you have the two option. You have the two option. Either you can treat, see, again go back. Always there is a provision that word before is being written in the time limit to issue the tax invoice. I can issue the invoice like you are saying, or you can just supply on the basis of the delivery challan, and within 6 months, if consent is being given, perfectly okay, goods are written, perfectly okay, or you have to treat the same as a supply. Kavya, I am not able to see your message. I think I'm not able to see your message. So you are taking the GST class because some messages are coming of accounts also. So Kavya, please confirm once again. You are taking the GST class also. You are taking the GST class. If the recipient is unregistered and value the supplies 50,000 or more, if value the 50,000 or more, then name and address of the recipient, delivery address along with the name of the state and the code. If the value is less than 50,000, then unregistered recipient may still request the aforesaid detail to be recorded in tax invoice. Otherwise, I am not required to issue the such detail. I am not required to repeat. I am not required to record these details. If invoice is being issued to the registered participant, if the recipient is registered, if my recipient is registered, then I will issue the invoice containing the name, address, and GSTIN. If the customer is unregistered, then I will issue the invoice 50,000 or more, values more than 50,000 or more, then I will record name, address, delivery address along with the name of the state and the code. And 50,000, if it is a less than 50,000, optional. But yes, if the customer demand, you have to record the same. HSIN code, description, quantity, total value, taxable value, rate of the taxes. HSIN code. What is the meaning of the HSIN code? Full name is Harmonized System of Nomenclature. Normally, it is being used for the goods. And when we talk about the coding system for services, then we are using the word SAC, Service Accounting Code. Correct. But please note one thing, in the Rule 46, they are talking about HSN and they are talking about for the goods and services. So it means HSN normally it is for goods, SAC normally it is for services, but in the Rule 46, HSN code is being used in wider term. It is talking about that you have to give the code for the goods as well as services. Jai Gandhi, your question is coming first time. Your question is coming first time. Gajjar, I am not receiving your reply too. I am not receiving any reply from you. Again, your reply is coming first time. Or one or two more times. Jamil, but sir, on Challan, we can raise e-way bill? Yes, absolutely correct, Jamil. When you are sending the goods, then you can select in the drop down delivery challan or etc. Tax invoice, bill of supply, you can select it. Rakesh Vyas, if it is an interstate supply based on approval, if invoice is not there, penalty imposed? Answer is no. Answer is no. There is a section 68, read with rule 138, it giving me the permission, and read with rule 55 also. The rule 55 we will discuss right now also in this chapter only. Rule 55 giving the permission, if you are moving the goods, you can move the goods on the basis of the delivery challan. There is no requirement of tax invoice in every case. And there is two circular also. Interesting point. For this particular point, there are two circular also. So rest to be sure, there is no penalty, Rakesh. Full name of the HSN is the Harmonized System of Nomenclature. That is basically the coding system for the goods or services. Coding system for the goods. So for example, one transportation service is there, then 9967 is the code. So that is coding system. Jai Gandhi, yes. Now you ask that I have received your question that if the goods, I asked that what if the goods does not like even after 6 months, then you have to compulsory issue the tax invoice. You have to compulsory issue the tax invoice. 31(7) says that you can maximum wait for 6 months. If the goods is not accepted or not returned after expiry of the 6 months, you have to issue the tax invoice. It is concept. This concept is also called as a deemed supply. This concept is also called as a deemed supply. Is it clear to everyone? Please confirm. Is it clear to everyone? Till now, there is any question? Please confirm. Please ask if there is any question, or if it is clear, kindly confirm. To unregistered person, Namrata, to unregistered person, the particular the tax invoice given as like registered person, then it will be permitted. Yes, except the GST number, rest all the things can come. Fine. Amount of the taxes, place of the supply, delivery address. If the tax is payable under reverse charge basis, then you have to tick this option. Signature or the digital signature or his authorized representative. But in case you are issuing the e-invoicing and you have made the signature in accordance with the provision of Information Technology Act, then no requirement, then there is no requirement. QR code having embedded IR number, this part we will discuss in e-invoicing. But remember this sentence is very important. Remember this sentence. Whenever e-invoice question is being asked, you always write QR code having embedded IRN. What is meaning? We will discuss and explain in the e-invoice chapter, e-invoice topic. This is being covered in accounts and tax invoice chapter only. Just wait for some more time. Now the question may be asked that how much digit we need to mention on the tax invoice. The total digit HSN code. I'm again talking about HSN code. HSN means Harmonized System of the Nomenclature. Normal total it is 8 digit. Total it is 8 digit. So in every case, we need to plot. We need to mention the 8 digit. Answer is no. Government has the power on the recommendation of the council. By notification, they can specify that which class of the registered person, how much number of the digit to be mentioned. In case of the certain class of the supply of the goods and services, certain specified number has to be mentioned. And in case of the certain class of the registered person, not required to be mentioned at all. So they can provide any combination. What is the combination is being provided? What the combination is being provided? They are saying if registered person having the aggregate turnover is up to 5 crore, then in case of the B2B transaction, it is 4 digit minimum required. In case of the B2C transaction, it's optional. If supplier having the aggregate turnover up to 5 crore, then for B2B transaction, minimum 4-digit. For B2C transaction, it is optional. If the registered person having the aggregate turnover greater than 5 crore, then in every case, all case, he has to mention 6-digit, whether it is B2B or it is B2C. So you may expect this theory question may be 2 marks. That what is the requirement to mention the HSIN code on the tax invoice? If up to 5 crore, then B2B 4-digit, B2C optional. Exceeding 5 crore, 6-digit, both for B2B and B2C. We have discussed rule 46. So what is the rule 46? It is talking about the particular of or content of the tax invoice. Now we are moving to the rule 48. Rule 48 is talking about manner in which tax invoice would be issued. Manner in which tax invoice would be issued. If it is a goods, you have to issue the invoice in triplicate. If it is a service, you have to issue the invoice in duplicate. Simple. So if I am making the supply of the goods, then I have to issue the invoice in 3 copy. What is the use of the 3 copy? One for supplier, one for customer, one for transporter. Original for customer, recipient, duplicate for transporter, triplicate for supplier. And in case of the services, I have to issue the invoice duplicate, one for recipient and one for supplier. Very simple. This is the format. Normally, you are also practically you have seen multiple times the tax invoice, correct? E-invoicing part, we will cover almost complete all the topic first, and then we will come to the e-invoicing and dynamic QR code. Any question? Yes. Now we are talking about section 31 subsection 3. Now we are talking about subsection 31 subsection 3. Let me talk about first in short, and then we'll go one by one. Before that, I am asking one question. Suppose advocate is registered in GST. He is making the supply to ABC Private Limited. He is registered in the GST. He is making the supply say worth of rupees 1 lakh to ABC Private Limited. Question number 1, who will pay the GST? Question number 1, who will pay the GST? First 4-digit. Jai Gandhi, it is always first 4-digit. It will always first 4-digit. Bill we receive in the restaurant is also tax invoice? Perfectly yes. It is a tax invoice. What is subsection 3? Coming to this point. Naveen Chandra, coming after this question, 31 subsection 3, multiple point I will talk about, but answer this question first. Who will pay this tax? Answer is ABC Private Limited. Question number 2, whether advocate required to issue tax invoice. Whether advocate required to issue tax invoice. This point is correct. All participants has given the correct answer that here RCM is applicable. ABC Private Limited will pay the tax. That is correct. Now my second, whether advocate required to issue the tax invoice or not. Whether advocate required to issue the tax invoice or not. We will take the break at 7:20 for 10 minutes. The class would be till 9. The class would continue till 9. Whether advocate required to issue the tax invoice. Whether advocate required to issue the tax invoice. Answer would be yes. Now answer would be yes. If registered in GST, advocate is registered in GST irrespective of the fact whether he is paying the tax or not, whether customer is paying the tax under reverse charge or not. If supplier is registered, he has to issue the tax invoice. Make it clear. Make it clear. Even advocate whose transaction are covered in the reverse charge, has to issue the tax invoice. Doesn't matter. ABC is paying the taxes. That is the reason. That is the reason when we discuss about the content of the tax invoice, this particular one of the content is whether tax is payable on the reverse charge. In this case, when advocate will issue the tax invoice, but he will not pay the tax, he will state the fact that tax will be payable under RCM basis. There would be yes, no option, or he can declare in a statement, whatever he want, but he has to declare the fact that tax will be paid by the recipient under reverse charge. I hope both point is clear. Now the third question, whether ABC Limited will issue the self invoice. I hope you are not aware about the self invoice. If it is not, you are not having any idea, please confirm that you are not having any idea. Jamil, yes, he has to mention the tax component also. He has to mention the tax component. Only point he will state that tax will be paid by the reverse charge, by the recipient under reverse charge. That's it. Now my question is whether self invoice is required to be prepared by ABC Private Limited. I am talking about RCM transaction. I'm talking about section 31 subsection 3 clause F. First, I'm talking about clause F. Rest I will talk about later on. After this explanation, I will come. Right now, I am talking about section 31 subsection 3 clause F. Supplier is providing the supply on which recipient is paying the tax under RCM. What is the requirement of the clause F? What is the requirement of the clause F? Now listen. Clause F says if supplier is registered, then recipient will not make self invoice. If the supplier is unregistered, then recipient will make the tax invoice, will make the self invoice. What is the self invoice? Nothing but the simple invoice. Because supplier is unregistered, law 31 subsection 3 clause F is imposing the liability to make the invoice on the recipient. That's it. Self invoice means simple a invoice. invoice, there would be no tax component. There would be no tax component, only the invoice as if it is being issued by the supplier. If the supplier is registered, like in my example, advocate is registered, whether ABC Private Limited need to issue the self invoice? Answer is no. Why no? 31 subsection 3 clause F saying, in case supplier is registered, no self invoice. In case supplier is unregistered, you need to make the self invoice. In the 31(3)(f), you will see then it is covered both the RCM 9 subsection 3 and 9 subsection 4. Both the RCM is being covered. So that is the part of the RCM chapter, not talking about too much about these sections, but yes. Now talking about section 31 subsection 3 clause D. This is for payment voucher. Rakesh Vyas, if GTA is registered, definitely he can issue the tax invoice and mention that tax will be paid by the recipient under RCM. If he is registered, and in that case, recipient is not required to issue the self invoice. (31) subsection 3 clause D is saying, if transaction is covered under reverse charge, supplier is covered in the reverse charge. If supplier is registered, then there is no requirement of self invoice. If the supplier is unregistered, yes, recipient will prepare the self invoice, and this self invoice to be declared in the GST return, GSTR1. Second point, what is the requirement of the payment voucher? Whether supplier is registered or unregistered, payment voucher would be issued in every case. I will explain once again. So the payment voucher would be required to be made in every case if the recipient who is covered under reverse charge paying the tax, then the payment voucher would be prepared for what? Whenever recipient making the payment to the supplier. So please note, the payment voucher is not the payment of the taxes. Payment voucher is not for the payment of the taxes. Payment voucher is for the payment to the supplier only in case of the RCM transaction, whether supplier is registered or unregistered. And this numbering would be reported in the GSTR1. Is it clear? Is it clear? I think. Could you please confirm? Is it clear now? 31(3)(D) is clear to all? Ayaji, everything is okay? Fine. ठीक है. So let me move. Sorry, not D, clause Z. Sorry, not D, clause Z. 31.3F and clause 31.3G. Both are clear, right? D for receipt voucher, absolutely correct. D for receipt voucher. I think both are clear. Payment voucher would be issued by the recipient to the supplier on those transactions which are covered in the reverse charge. Payment voucher would be issued for the payment by the recipient to the supplier. Only for those transactions payment voucher would be issued. Fine. Now coming to the rest of the part, 31 subsection 3, we have discussed clause F and clause G. Now we are coming to the revised invoice. We are coming to the other clauses. See, registered person within 1 month from the date of issue of the certificate of registration, issue the revised invoice. I do agree. Sometime it is problem. Extremely sorry for that. Against the invoice already issued during the period beginning with the effective date of the registration till the date of the issuance of the certificate of the registration. What is the provision? Provision says that if I need, suppose my turnover is 15 lakh right now, I'm not required to take registration. On 1st January 2022, my turnover crossed the threshold limit, either 20 lakhs or 40 lakh, whatever the case may be. I need to take registration. I have made the application within 30 days. I hope you can correlate why I am saying 30 days. I have made the application on 25th Jan 2022. My certificate of the registration is being granted in REG 06 on 6th Feb 2022. What is the effective date of the registration in this case? Can you please tell me what is the effective date of the registration in this case? I do agree the question is with respect to the effective date of registration. Can you please tell me what is the effective date of the registration in this case? 1st Jan, 25th Jan or 6th February? What is the answer? What is the effective date of the registration in this case? Answer would be, if I have made the application within 30 days, the answer would be absolutely correct, 1st Jan. Then clause A says that from the effective date of the registration, that is 1st Jan, till the date of the certificate, that is 6th Feb. Whatever the invoice I have issued, I will issue the revised invoice from 6th Feb to 5th March. Within 1 month, I will issue the revised invoice. Sir, why I will issue the revised invoice? Because my customer will have the invoice which is not prescribed, which will not have the component which is being prescribed in the rule 46. Supplier invoice number has to, GST number has to be there. But in that period, I do not have any invoice. I do not have any GST number. So my invoice would not contain GST number or other particular. Therefore, I will issue the revised invoice. The time limit to issue the revised invoice, time limit to issue the revised invoice is 1 month. Time limit to issue the revised invoice is 1 month. Time limit to issue the revised invoice is 1 month. From which date? Beginning with effective date of the registration, that is 1st Jan 2022, and issuance of the certificate, that is 6th Feb 2022. Sure. I will not write on the right side. I will not write because it is not visible. Perfect, no problem. Clause B is talking about time limit to issue the revised invoice is 1 month. Sandeep, I was saying that I have made the application on 25th Jan 2022. My turnover crossed the threshold limit, 2040, whatever the case may be. What is the time limit to make the application for the GST? 30 days. We have discussed in the registration chapter. And suppose my certificate is being granted on 6th Feb. I hope example is clear. If I have made the application within 30 days, the effective date of the registration would be 1st Jan 2022. And from this date to this date, whatever the invoice I have issued, whatever the tax I have collected, for all those transactions, I can issue the revised invoice within 1 month from 6th Feb to 5th March. Is it clear? From 6th Jan to 5th March, I will issue the revised invoice. I cannot issue the revised invoice after expiry of the 1 month. Sandeep, kindly confirm. Now the next clause, clause B, is saying if the value is less than 200, please note this is important. Sometimes question is being asked on the clause B itself. Clause B is saying that if the value is less than 200, then I can issue as per such conditions, such manner as may be prescribed. So we will go, what is the condition? So value is less than 200. It can be goods or services. Recipient is unregistered and recipient does not require invoice. So he cannot issue, he may not issue the tax invoice. Instead, such registered person shall issue the consolidated tax invoice for each day. Point to be remembered. Sometimes the question is being asked whether consolidated tax invoice can be issued for every month. As per clause B, can we issue consolidated tax invoice for each month? Answer is consolidation is permitted. Consolidation means for every transaction, I'm not required to issue the tax invoice. I can consolidate, and for each day, I will issue the tax invoice consolidated. When? If the value is less than 200, recipient is unregistered, and he does not require invoice. In that case, I can issue consolidated invoice. What is the exception? What is the exception? Exception is, however, this option is not available to the supplier engaged in making the supply by way of admission to exhibition of cinematographic film in multiplex screen. So it is this option. This option means consolidated tax invoice option is not available. Consolidated tax invoice option is not available. Now, the only one question, and after that we will take the break. Go to the question number 8. Go to the question number 8. And please give me the answer. Go to the question number 8 and please give me the answer. ABC Cinema, a registered person engaged in the supply of the service by way of admission to exhibition of the cinematographic film in multiplex screen, was issuing consolidated invoice for supply at close of each day in terms of 31(3)(b. Whether this procedure is correct or not. 4 marks ka question. Let's see that. How many marks are there? 4 marks. Can you please give me the answer? Is it possible or not possible? Please give me the answer. Is it possible or not possible? They are not talking about single screen or multiple screen, multiplex theater. So when we are taking the admission, when we are going to watch the movie, then they have to issue the individual invoice. They cannot issue the consolidated invoice. Perfect. Now let's take a break of 10 minutes. We will resume at 7:30. Please answer question number 4. Please answer question number 4. Please answer the question number 4. So answer is the 1st August, it exceeds the turnover 40 lakh on 5th September. He has made the application on 20th September. What is the effective date of the registration? 5th September. Whatever the document or invoice is being issued between 5th September to 6th October, he will issue the revised tax invoice within 1 month. That is 5th November 2019. Perfect. Coming to the next 31 subsection 3 clause C. It's talk about 31(3)(c) stipulate that a registered person supplying the exempted goods or services or both to a registered person. So they are talking about the bill of supply. Bill of supply, we can issue the bill of the supply in 2 circumstances. We can issue the bill of the supply in 2 cases. If I am making the supply the exempted goods or services, or I am registered in the composition levy. Bill of supply can be issued in 2 circumstances. Either supplier is registered under normal category and is making the Jamil, you are saying actually when you are private company, when you are get registered on ROC, but to answer, the company has to issue the revised invoice. So it's optional. So they have started nowadays. Automatically, they have started nowadays. The feature was not there in earlier. And the concept was not what is the process of automatically or not automatically. The simply is being answered to the question which is being asked in exams. So in 2 cases, supply can be made under the cover of the bill of supply instead of tax invoice if it is an exempted, or it can be supplied by the composition dealer, because composition dealer cannot collect the tax. What could be the content? Content will be bill of supply name, address and GST number, consecutive serial number, same date of issue, name, address and GST number, HSIN code, description, value, signature or digital signature. It is not required in case of the signature is being issued in case under the cover of IT Act, Information Technology Act. Now you can see one question on bill of supply also. Question number 2. What do you mean by the bill of the supply? Determine the particular of the bill of the supply. Bill of the supply would be issued in 2 cases: if my supply is exempted or I am registered under composition levy. Now we are talking about Rule 46 capital A. So now this, try to understand the combination of both. I am registered person and I am making the supply of taxable item as well as exempted item in a single transaction. In a single transaction, I am making the supply of taxable as well as exempted item. Mr. A is registered in the GST and is making the supply to the Mr. B, again he is registered in the GST. We have talked about that if transaction is taxable, if the underlying item is taxable goods or services, the tax invoice would be there. Just now we have discussed if the item is exempted, then it will be the bill of the supply. Now the question is, can we merge both and issue the single document named as invoice cum bill of the supply? Answer has been given in the rule 46 capital A. So there are three questions. Let me complete this slide, then we'll come back to the question. In this example, I'm talking about that is it possible that we can merge both the transaction and can issue single document? Answer is being given in the 46A, and 46A say yes, you can issue the single named as invoice cum bill of the supply, but condition is the customer should be unregistered person. You can issue the single document which named as invoice cum bill of the supply, provided the recipient should be unregistered. In my example, the recipient is registered, therefore it cannot be possible. The two separate document has to be issued. One is the tax invoice, one is bill of the supply. I hope it is clear. This concept is clear. Now coming back to the question which is being asked by certain participant. Can we issue the bill of the supply in case of the export? Answer is no, because it depends if it is a taxable item or not, depending upon that. Exception of B point. Pooja, which point you are talking about? Please confirm once again. And Vrinda, in case of the advocate is registered, he is issuing the tax only, but recipient pay the tax to the government, not to advocate. Advocate receives the fees for the service only. Absolutely correct. And that is the reason he has to mention one point: the tax will be paid under reverse charge. We have discussed one point that in the invoice component, there is one element that if RCM is applicable and supplier is registered, issuing the tax invoice, he has to mention that tax will be paid by the recipient under RCM. Fine. Coming to the clause D. Clause A, revised invoice. Clause B, invoice is of 200, then we can issue the consolidated, but there is one exception. I think Pooja, you're talking about this point only. What is the exception? That in case of the cinematographic film, you are taking the admission to the film by the multiplex screen. In that case, they have to issue invoice for each transaction. They cannot make the consolidation. That is the point. I hope, is it clear? I hope it is clear now. You were talking about this point. Let me go back. That only this exception for which they have asked one question also, that when this option is not available, consolidation, if the supplier is engaged in the supply of the service by way of admission to the cinematographic films in the multiplex screen. And here this exception is not available, meaning thereby they have to issue the invoice individually for each transaction. See, normally consolidation is not permissible in any case. Where it is permissible, clause B say that if the invoice value is less than 200, not issuing the tax invoice. If invoice value is 200, unregistered and recipient does not require, in that case, yes, we can make the consolidation. But that consolidation is per day or per month? Per day. Invoice cum bill of the supply is giving the relaxation when transaction is with B2C, business to consumer, unregistered, and you are making taxable as well as exempted item. You can make a single document. need to be reversed. Why need to be reversed? You are talking about again a revised invoice, but which concept you are talking about? Let me move fast because we have almost 45 minutes we are there. So we need to complete more component, certain more part. Now, next point is receipt voucher. Receipt voucher, if we are receiving the advance payment, we need to issue the receipt voucher. Advance for supply of the goods is not taxable. Advance for supply of the goods is not taxable from 15th November 2017 onward. But advance for supply of the services is taxable in the GST. We have discussed this point. You have already discussed this point in the time of supply chapter. But the point is, do we need to issue the receipt voucher even for the goods or now not required? See, point is, from 15th November 2017 onward, time of supply for the goods has excluded the advance payment. Now the question is still we need to issue the receipt voucher. Let's see the language. A registered person on receipt of the advance payment with respect to the supply of goods or services, then they will issue the receipt voucher evidencing the receipt of the payment. And this receipt voucher will be reported in the GSTR1 also. All these documents which we are talking about right now, all the numbering of these documents would be captured in the GSTR1, would be reported in the GSTR1. Receipt voucher, same name, address, consecutive serial number, date, recipient, name, address, GST number, description of the goods and services, amount of the advance taken, what is the rate of the taxes, amount of the taxes, place of the supply, whether RCM is there or not, signature or digital signature. Now, if one point at the time of the advance, if that rate of the tax is not determinable, then assume 18%. And if the nature of the supply is not sure, then you assume interstate supply. Because suppose if I have received the advance against services, I need to pay the taxes and assume I'm not sure where I will render the services, within a state or another state. I'm not sure whether C&S has to be paid or IGST to be paid. This rule is saying you can treat the same as inter, and tax rate is not sure, then you can treat the same as 18%. What if they print one ticket for 5 people together and charge GST for every transaction? So fine, now suppose I'm purchasing 5 tickets. So individual transaction means that amount which I'm paying. Suppose I purchase 5 tickets, so they will issue the invoice for the 5 tickets. Mohammed, if you are saying to me, then I'm not able to see your comment. Or I hope you are saying to the accounts class also, because I can see the merge comment. Vedant, what if the case if vice versa, that supplier is unregistered and recipient is registered? It would not be applicable. If the supplier is unregistered, then obviously he is not binding by any of the GST law. So if the supplier is unregistered, then no law is applicable, no GST provision is applicable on that supplier. So no question of invoice will come. Now, refund voucher. For every refund voucher, there would be one receipt voucher. For every refund voucher, there would be one receipt voucher. Why? The provisions say if I have taken the advance and that particular transaction is not completed, I have taken the advance and transaction is not being completed, I need to return that amount which I have taken from you. I have taken the advance from you for making the supply. Assume the supply is not being completed. I need to return this amount advance. Then I will issue the refund voucher. So receipt voucher is for taking the advance, refund voucher for returning the advance. Meaning thereby, for every refund, do I need to issue the refund voucher? Answer is no. You will refund, you will make the refund voucher only when you have taken the advance and that advance you are returning. Whether payment voucher is required to be made in every case? No. Only when RCM is applicable and recipient is making the payment to the supplier. Particular of the refund voucher, again almost same, so you can refer. Invoice and payment voucher we have discussed. Now coming to the, let me see. Yes, no. Yes. Now we were talking about supplier permitted to issue any document other than tax invoice. We have discussed now, government has the power to issue the notification and prescribed certain category of the transaction, certain category of the supplier. Instead of the tax invoice, they will issue any other document. Who all are those category? Insurance, first category, insurance, banking company, financial institution, NBFC. Serial number is optional. It is not mandatory for these organization, and address of the customer is also not mandatory. What is mandatory? Other information, whatever we have discussed in the rule 46, all other component other than serial number and address, all other component are mandatory, need to be reported. Customer may avail service from bank, insurance in a given tax period. Such entity may issue the consolidated tax invoice, any other document in lieu thereof by whatever name called, may be issued, made available physically or electronically during the month at the end of the month. Repeating again, the customer may avail numerous services from the bank and they can issue the invoice for the supply of the service made during the month or at the end of the month. Signature is okay. Now second case is GTA. If the GTA is service provider, then what is additional component need to be there? Gross weight of the consignment, name of the consignor and consignee, registration number of the goods carries, in which goods are transported, details of the goods transported, details of the place of the origin and destination, GSTIN number, and other information as may be prescribed in the rule 46. So these are not prescribed. These details are not prescribed in the rule 46. They are saying, yes, this additional to be captured, additional detail to be captured by the GTA. Certain additional options, optional or additional requirement was there for insurance, banking company, etc. Third, that passenger transportation service, again, serial number and address is optional. Tax invoice shall include ticket in any form by whatever name called. Other information, whatever we have discussed in the rule 46 is mandatory. What is the optional? Serial number and the address is optional. And signature and digital signature. Next is admission to exhibition of the cinematographic film in the multiplex screen. What is the optional and what is the mandatory? Details of the recipient of the service is optional. And supplier is required to issue an electronic ticket, and the said electronic ticket shall be deemed to be the tax invoice. Other information as prescribed for the tax invoice under rule 46 is applicable. Now, again, important delivery challan. Rule 55 is talking about we should issue the delivery challan. We can issue the delivery challan in 4 circumstances. We can issue the delivery challan in 4 circumstances. If supplier is supplying the liquid gas where the quantity is not known at the time of the removal. So if the liquid gas is being transported, then some quantity would be not reached. So when the final quantity would be reached to the customer, for that quantity, the bill would be made. In case of the liquid gas, whatever the quantity is being reached to the ultimate recipient, for that quantity, the invoice would be made. Then rule 55 say you can make the delivery challan for transportation of this liquid gas. Second, if you are transporting the goods to the job worker, when I am making the making the availability of the goods to the job worker, then it is not a supply, it is not a sale. I can move the goods on the basis or under the cover of the delivery challan to the job worker. Third, transporting the goods for reason other than by way of the supply. So for example, I'm sending the goods for repair and repair and maintenance. I'm sending some material for repair and maintenance. So in that case, it is a supply. Answer is no. Then how to move the goods? Because for movement of the goods, we need to prepare the e-way bill if the amount is being exceeding the 50,000 and other. So they are saying in these cases you will prepare the delivery challan for liquid gas where the quantity is not known at the time of the removal. Second is the transporting the goods for the job worker. Third is transportation of the goods other than by way of the supply. Because if it is a supply, then you have to prepare the tax invoice. If it is not a supply, but you are moving the goods. Work contractor. Suppose work contractor, he is doing the construction work in Lucknow. He has received one work in the Noida also. For that, he is moving his machinery, his equipment to the Noida location. So from Lucknow to the Noida location, is it a supply? Answer is no. It is only moving for the purpose to carry out the work. His own goods is moving. Then what document will be prepared? He will prepare the delivery challan. Particular content almost same, serial number in one or multiple series not exceeding 16 character, or date and number of the delivery challan, name, address and GST number, name, address and GST of the consignee if registered, HSIN code, quantity, taxable value, tax rate and place of the supply and signature. So delivery challan would be prepared in triplicate, original, duplicate and triplicate. Original for consignee, duplicate for transporter and triplicate for consignor. Declaration in e-way bill. If we are moving the goods on the basis of the delivery challan, we will declare the same in the e-way bill. So there is a drop down. We will select the same, that we are moving the goods on the basis of the delivery challan. Tax invoice to be issued after delivery of the goods. Very important. Because of any reason, if the transaction is supply, if I am moving the goods and then movement is a supply, and because of any reason invoice could not be issued, then at the time of removal, then I have the option that goods can be transported on the cover of the delivery challan and tax invoice can be issued after delivering of the goods. I am not able to see any comment, any reply. Everything is okay. I'm not able to see any comment. Kindly confirm, is it okay? Is it clear? If the goods are transported in CKD or SKD condition or in the batch or in the lots. Again, you may expect one question. You may expect question from this clause also. This clause says that if the goods are being transported in the semi knockdown condition, complete knockdown or the batch or the lot. For example, Mr. A has purchased the certain quantity, 1000 quantity of a particular goods, and supplier has issued one tax invoice. But the Jamil, I have not received any query. Just I have received this point, understood, it's clear. Only this point I have seen. Yes, it's a comparatively big section, but conceptually make it clear, it would be easy. We will do the revision in the end of the class also. Okay. So we will spend 10 minutes, like last class, we will spend 10 minutes to revise the topic. If the goods are sent, so the total quantity is 1000, but it cannot be transported in a single conveyance vehicle. So assume that there are the 3 trucks is being used for moving the goods. Then tax invoice is single, but we are sending the goods in the batch or in the lot. What to do? In this case, the rule is saying you can make the date of the invoice and the challan date is same or may different. It may different because you are moving the goods now, and rule above provision is saying that when you are delivering the goods, you can make the invoice till at that point of time also. So it will be different. Rakesh Vyas, Rule 55 is applicable in inter as well as intra. It is not talking about that it is applicable only in inter or intra. It is saying that it is applicable in 4 cases. That's it. 3 cases we have discussed. 4th, that government can notify any other case also. So when 1000 quantity is being moved in 3 truck, then how to carry out this movement? Then they are saying supplier shall issue the complete invoice before dispatch of the first consignment. Supplier shall issue the delivery challan for each of the subsequent consignment, giving the reference number of the invoice. 3rd, copies of the corresponding delivery challan should be accompanied each consignment along with the duly certified copy of the invoice. Repeating again that you will prepare the delivery challan. First, invoice has to be issued. Complete invoice should be issued before dispatch. Then for subsequent consignment, because you are the only one tax invoice, but there are 3 trucks. For subsequent consignment, you will use the delivery challan. But in that delivery challan, you will give the reference of original invoice. 3rd point, copies of the corresponding delivery challan shall accompany each consignment along with the duly certified copy of the invoice. Correct. Yes, there was a circular, and probably this will help you. Rakesh, I think you've asked the question initially that if we will not support the invoice, then will there be any problem, penalty, etc.? The answer would be government has issued 2 circular, circular 10 and circular 22. What they are saying, both are almost same. So you can read any single. Suppose artist supplying the artwork in the different state other than the state in which they are registered as a taxable person, and suppose he is registered in Delhi and is making the artwork in the multiple state, Mumbai, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Karnataka, and if the artwork is selected by the buyer, then supplier will issue the tax invoice only at the time of supply. So when he is moving the goods, is it clear that he is making the supply? Answer is no. Like it is a sales on approval basis. So what will be the document to be used? It is clarified that artwork for the supply on sales on approval basis can be moved on the basis of the delivery challan. Along with e-way bill wherever applicable, and the invoice may be issued at the time of actual supply of the artwork. Same they are saying in the circular 10 for jewelry. Now the very interesting point, credit note and debit note. Very, very interesting and very practical. Sometime I have seen 3-4 times a question is being asked on criteria on the situation where the credit note and debit note will be issued. Let's discuss one by one. Section 34, credit note, where one or more tax invoice. This word more is giving the answer. This word more is giving the answer. For one tax invoice, I can issue the multiple credit note, or multiple tax invoice, I can issue the consolidated credit note. Avinash, yes, there is a time limit to issue the credit note. We will discuss in 34.2. Duly certified copy of the invoice means I will sign and stamp. Because for each delivery challan, I have to support the same. Invoice is only one, but I have to support for each delivery challan. So I will make it Xerox and sign and stamp by saying that it is duly certified. Means third truck has to carry first delivery challan with the third delivery challan reference. Third, see, there would be, means there would be 3 truck. First truck would cover the first delivery challan supported by the Xerox copy of the invoice duly certified. Second truck would be carry the second delivery challan supported by the duly certified copy of the invoice. Third would contain the, would have the original invoice. Would have the original invoice. Now the next, one or more tax invoice has been issued for supply of the goods or services or both and taxable value or tax has been charged is found to be exceeded. So if the taxable value or the tax is being charged extra, then the supplier will issue the credit note. We are reading the credit note, in which situations the credit note can be issued, and very, very important from the examination point of view. Multiple times it has been asked. If one or more tax invoice has been issued and the taxable value or the tax in the tax invoice is found to exceed the taxable value or tax payable, first. Second, where the goods supplied are written by the recipient, sales return. Third, where the goods or services are found to be deficient, means there is a deficiency and because of that you are giving the credit to the customer. The registered person who has supplied such goods may issue the recipient one or more credit note for the supplies made in a financial year containing such particular as may be prescribed. What are the situations we can issue the credit note? If taxable value is being charged extra, tax is being charged extra, or the goods has been returned, or the goods or services has been found deficient. These are the only situation when you can issue the credit note. Sometime you may ask, sir, customer is not making the payment, can we issue the credit note? Answer would be no, because it is not permissible in the 34(1). You can issue the credit note only 4 category of the transactions: taxable value extra, tax extra, goods are returned, or goods or services are found to be deficient. Who will issue the credit note? Who will issue the credit note? Only supplier. As per 34(1), only supplier will issue the credit note. Now, what is the time limit to issue the credit note? There is a time limit to issue the credit note. Any registered person who issue the credit note in relation to the supply shall declare the details in the return for the month during which such credit note has been issued. So when you are issuing the credit note, you will report in the same month in that GST return, but not later than September following the end of the financial year. It means, let's say we are talking about financial year 21-22. There is a tax invoice which is being charged extra, or the goods has been returned by my customer, or there is a deficiency. Supplier can issue the credit note till September after the end of the financial year, means they are talking about till 30th September. Supplier can issue the credit note till September after the end of the financial year in which the supply was made, or date of the furnishing of annual return, whichever is earlier. See, the concept of annual return we will discuss in the last class, what is the return which is being applicable. But I think you have discussed this same point, same time limit in input tax credit chapter also. Please explain deficient point wala. For example, Jay Gandhi, for example, Mr. A is a supplier who has supplied the goods, but goods having that damage, goods has been received by the customer in the damaged condition. Or you have been, Mr. A is being asked to provide the service, but the service is not being rendered up to mark. He's saying, customer is saying, you have charged, but the service is deficient, so I will deduct 20,000. So for that amount, he will issue the credit note. Or goods are reached in the damaged condition. So for that, he will reduce some amount. For reduction, he will issue the credit note. I hope this is clear. Any registered person who issue the credit note shall declare. What is the time limit to declare? You will report like this. You will mention like this: furnishing of annual return or September after the end of the financial year, whichever is earlier. provided no reduction in the output tax liability shall be permitted if the incidence has been passed on any other person. So this is the situation that if I have passed the incidence and suppose customer, I hope you have discussed, you have read the 15 subsection 3 also. Let me correlate with the one topic of the valuation chapter. I hope you have discussed this particular, remember this provision 15 subsection 3, secondary discount, clause B, post sale discount. So you are satisfying the two condition, or there should be agreement. There has to be an agreement, and recipient has reversed the input tax credit, and it should be linked to the relevant invoices. Then only supplier can issue the GST credit note. Otherwise, he will issue the financial credit note. Quantity come, that can also be the one situation. That can also be the one situation, or quantity being received full, but it is in the damage condition. Sunil Dubey, sir, can you please explain subsection 2 again? Yes, fine, no problem. Subsection 2 talking about time limit to issue the credit note. Time limit to issue the credit note. What is the time limit? Time limit is September after the end of the financial year. It means, let's say we are talking about financial year 21-22. There is any tax invoice which pertain to financial year 21-22. We can issue the credit note till 30th September 2022, or annual return which for financial year 21-22. Normally due date of financial year is 31st December. Normally due date of the any annual return is 31st December after the end of the financial year. So whichever is earlier, that would be the last date to issue the invoice, issue the credit note for that invoice. Is it clear? Sunil Dubey, kindly confirm. Now for the debit note. Again, one or more tax invoice have been issued for the supply of the goods or services, and the taxable value or tax charged in that tax invoice Ankit Gupta, I'm not sure you are asking to me or some accounts teacher, because mixed queries are coming. One or more tax invoice has been issued for the supply of the goods or services or both, and taxable value or the tax charge in that tax invoice is found to be less than the taxable value of tax payable in respect of supply. So in credit note, we have discussed either taxable value or the tax is being charged excess. I need to reduce. For that, I will issue the credit note. Now in the debit note, taxable value or the tax charge in the invoice is found to be less than. So original invoice, I have raised the original invoice for lesser amount. I have to pay extra amount. I have to take extra amount. For that, I will issue the debit note. Who has supplied such goods or services shall issue the recipient one or more debit note for the supplies made in a financial year. Perfect. And what is the time limit? Time limit to issue the debit note. Any registered person who issue the debit note shall declare the details in such debit note in the return for the month during which such debit note has been issued, and the tax liability shall be adjusted accordingly. There is no last date. There is no last date. So why there is a last date for credit note and there is no last date for debit note? Can anybody tell me why there is no last date for debit note? There is a last date for credit note. See, normally credit note, say, think about from supplier angle. Supplier is issuing the credit note. Will he pay the tax or he will reduce his tax liability? So please answer my question. If supplier is issuing the credit note, will he pay the tax to the government or he will reduce the tax liability? Answer is reduce the tax liability. Therefore, there is a cutoff date. Therefore, there is a last date. Both debit and credit note will be issued by supplier only. 34(1) is saying, and 34(3) both are saying that debit and credit note can only be issued by the supplier in the GST, because in the GST the same would be reported. and the GSTR1 is for the details of the outward supply. Supplier will report the same. Therefore, the debit note and credit note which we are talking about, we are talking from the supplier angle. So, and debit note, we need to pay the tax to the government. Supplier will pay the tax to the government, and therefore there is no cutoff date. There is no last date. If he is paying late, he has to pay tax along with interest. Fine. So now let's see. Let's move to the certain question answer, because we have completed. We have only left with the last topic, that is e-invoice. We will discuss after completion of question answer. So this we have discussed. Yes. I hope you are clear. List down the situation in which the credit note and debit note can be issued. It has been asked multiple times. 5 marks May 2018 old syllabus, 5 marks May 2019 new syllabus, 5 marks November 2018 old syllabus, 2 marks July 21 old syllabus. So credit note can be issued in 4 circumstances. Credit note can be issued in 4 circumstances: tax amount, taxable value is being charged extra, tax is being charged extra, goods has been returned, or it is found to be deficient. And what is the debit note? Only first 2 situations. Taxable value, the tax has been charged or reported lesser amount. You need example. You need example. Who is saying? Rohini, is it clear? Debit note and credit note, or still you have doubt? Please confirm. Still you have the doubt? Please confirm. Or is it clear? Jay Gandhi, that is the date which is being mentioned in the GST law. That is the last date, 31st December, which is being mentioned in the GST law. Normally it is October. Normally I can say it is October, not the March. Excellent, Indrapal. Superb. Every situation you have clarified. Great, great. So if the supplier issue the credit note after September, very important question, that credit note, if he is issuing after the September, it cannot be with GST. It cannot be with GST. Suppose you are returning the goods after September, invoice pertaining to the financial year 21-22, you are returning after September, after the end of the financial year. I, being a supplier, cannot issue the GST credit note. Means I will issue the credit note but without GST. It means there would be the loss of the taxage. So who will be here? Depend upon the transaction. Excellent. Example like goods has been returned, goods are deficient. I think it is clear in the sales section. We should required to reverse challan, invoice, e-way bill, not required to reverse the challan. You will report the same, reduce the tax liability. Reduce the tax liability. From a supplier angle, if you are talking about, there is no requirement to make any correction in the original, because e-way bill you can't correct. You can't correct e-way bill. You can't modify e-way bill after being issued invoice. Delivery challan you cannot correct. So whatever the document, which document to be issued, you will issue the debit note or credit note, and accordingly you will reduce your tax liability or increase your tax liability. Jamil, but how the recipient will get the benefit once GSTR1 is submitted and also invalid and is also filed? So when I will report the same, say you are talking about debit note. So when I will report the same, I am a supplier and you are a customer. When I will report the same in the GSTR1, it will reflect in the GSTR2A and you can take the ITC. And credit note is not taking the benefit. Credit note is for taking the benefit. No, it is the reversal of input tax credit. Absolutely correct. Sir, A in clause D, the person making supply outside Delhi can treat as interstate. Sir, A in clause D, the person making supply In or outside Delhi can treat it. Vedant, please ask the question again. Unable to understand. Sandeep, if supplier issue credit note after September, I've given the answer. Let's move to the next question. Question 4, we have clarified quickly. If the value of the supply charge in an invoice is rupees 2,50,000 against the actual taxable supply of 2,30,000, which document will be issued? If the supply was 230, but he has raised the invoice 250, which document will be issued? Debit note or credit note? Debit note or credit note? Which document will be issued? Original invoice of 2,50,000, but it should be 2,30,000. So which document will be issued by the supplier? Debit note or credit note? Answer is credit note. Correct. Whether debit note or credit note has to be issued in each of the above circumstances, and if so, quantify the amount. Tax charge was 32,000 against the actual tax liability of 68 due to the wrong code. So the tax is being charged 32,000 against the actual tax liability. So what you will issue? You will issue the debit note for what amount? Differential amount, 68 minus 32. What is the maximum time limit available to declare the credit note in the GST return? What is the maximum time limit? We have discussed September after the end of the financial year or annual return, whichever is earlier. Today, we have discussed all this point. Please briefly explain the revised tax invoice, bill of supply, receipt, voucher, payment voucher, refund voucher. We have already discussed. Invoice, we are coming to this point. This question 8, we have invoice. Narayan Singh, a registered supplier, has received the advance payment with respect to the service to be supplied to Sally. His accountant asked him to issue the receipt voucher with respect to such service to be supplied. He has received the advance payment and now he is being asked to issue the receipt voucher. Accountant is saying that what would happen in case the receipt voucher is issued but subsequently no service are supplied. You are required to advise Narayan Singh regarding the same. So you tell me the answer. If subsequently no supply is being happened and that amount to be returned, what happened to that case? What happened in that case? You need to give the advice to Narayan Singh. If he has received the advance, subsequently no service has been rendered, what will happen? What would be the GST law talking about these transactions? The answer is refund voucher. If there is an advance for which a receipt voucher is being issued and subsequently service has not been rendered, then amount will be refunded through refund voucher. This is a repetition. We have already discussed bill of the supply and debit note circumstances in which bill of the supply debit note will be issued. Absolutely correct. Rahul, refund voucher is not as per the rule 55. It is according to the subsection 31, subsection 3. Sitaraman Textile has to send cloth for dyeing to its job worker. It wishes to know whether it need to issue the tax invoice at the time of sending the goods to the job worker. Please advise with the reference of the provision of the CGST Act. Advisor, he need to send the cloth for dyeing for the job worker to the job worker. Then which document will be issued? Will it be required to issue the tax invoice or any other document? Which document to be issued by the Sitaram Textile? Absolutely correct. The document would be delivery challan, and there is no requirement to issue the tax invoice. You can give the reference to the rule 55, and in 4 circumstances, you can issue the delivery challan. QR code, this is also QR code. Just give me the answer. Mr. Subhas and Company, registered person supplying the taxable goods to unregistered, it need not issue tax invoice for the goods supplied if the value of the goods is 1200, 600, 150 or 200. 1200, 600, 150 or 200. Give me the answer. Very important question. Give me the answer. Important question, question number 15. A, B, C or D. Give me the correct answer. Let me read the provision once again. Let me read the provision of once again. A registered person may not issue tax invoice if the value of the goods or services is less than 200. It means in 200, the clause B would not give the relaxation. You have to issue the document tax invoice. When you can take the relaxation if the value is less than 200, meaning thereby the answer would be C, not D. I hope it is clear to all. So fine, we are moving to the why you are saying not required in any of the case. If the recipient is registered, see, if the recipient is registered, invoice has to be made. Whether in need or not, doesn't matter. You have to prepare that invoice. You have to prepare the invoice. Rupesh, is it clear? That answer would be C, not the A, B or D. It is better to report, but it's not compulsion that you have to report the section number, then only the number would be given. No, not necessary. Indrapal, I hope it is clear. Why not D? Why C? Sunil Dubey, kindly confirm. Sunil Dubey, kindly confirm. Is it clear that why the answer is C? Why not D? Give me 1 minute. Should we also mention the challan and e-way bill by Sitaram, not Sitaraman. Challan and e-way bill by Sitaram. Yes, challan and e-way bill. E-way bill, just check whether value is exceeding or not. If and in case if it is enter, it is mandatory. Vrinda is saying, in case credit note is being issued after September for financial year 21-22, it can be adjusted in December return filing. Answer is no, it cannot be adjusted. It will be without GST. Whichever is earlier, remember whichever is earlier, September or annual return, whichever is earlier. Great. So now we are coming to the Sunil Dubey saying, can you please explain it again? So the clause B is saying if the value is less than 200, if the value is less than 200, then I need to, I have the option to consolidate it, and I'm not required to issue the invoice for making the supply to unregistered customer. 3 condition: supply is making to unregistered party, value is less than 200, not 200, less than 200. Therefore, the correct answer is 150 because it is less than 200. All other options either 200 or more than 200. Therefore, the correct answer was C. Recipient can issue, cannot issue, there is no problem, but the supplier has to issue. Only point, supplier has to issue. Allow me 10-15 minutes, and last 15 minutes we will enjoy the discussion of entire chapter would be covered in certain question. Okay, so that we can so we are completing in just 10-15 minutes. Last topic, again it is important. Why it is important? Because it is new topic and it is being asked multiple times. E-invoice, QR code, dynamic QR code, multiple time it is being asked. Theory question. And what is the question? The question, what is the meaning of the invoice? What is the benefit? What is the process? When it is not applicable, when it is applicable, etc. Fine. See, e-invoicing. What is e-invoice? Try to understand. Invoice through government portal is not the e-invoice. See, there are two processes. Process one, you have to prepare your invoice by using your accounting software. Like I am using Tally, I am using SAP, I am using any other ERP. I will prepare invoice by using that software only. Plus, now you will remember this one technical term. You should remember this technical term, IRP, Invoice Registration Portal. After you prepare the invoice, you go to the IRP, submit the details of invoice. Government has provided 10 IRP. 10 IRP means 10 portal, so that there should be no problem while generating the e-invoicing. What is the role of invoice? When I prepare my invoice, I will report the same in IRP. Once I will report the same in IRP, system will give back to me IRN. System will give back to me IRN. What is the IRN? Invoice reference number. Invoice reference number, and along with QR code. First develop the concept, then you can remember the theory. So language is okay, you can write plus minus, no problem, because every component would be of 1 mark or 2 mark maximum. But if you remember the concept, you can write your own story, no problem. When it is applicable, if your aggregate turnover is exceeding 50 crore, always remember, word has to be there, aggregate turnover. Not only turnover, not annual turnover, no, nothing. Aggregate turnover. And this word has to be there, sir. This word has to be there. Very, very important. Any preceding financial year from 17-18 onward. It means if I am having the turnover either in 17-18 or 18-19 or 19-20 or 21-22, any financial year, if my turnover exceeds 50 crore, then I would be covered by e-invoicing provision. Please note one thing. Suppose in 17-18 you have the 100 crore turnover. After that you are having 10 crore, 5 crore, 2 crore. Will you require to prepare the invoice through e-invoice? Answer is yes, because the word any is there. In any preceding financial year from 17-18 onwards. Then we will discuss notified person. Yes. What is the concept of e-invoice? E-invoice is not the generation of invoice by government portal. Taxpayer will continue to create GST invoice by using the accounting software. as per e-invoice schema. Invoice, then it will be reported in IRP portal. Once you report, it will give the IRR number, digitally signed, and return the e-invoice to the supplier. What is the benefit? See, to which transaction it is applicable? First B2B and second exporter. First B2B means registered to registered. If my customer is unregistered, do I need to prepare the e-invoice? No. For B2C transaction, it is not applicable. For B2B, it is mandatory, and for export, it is mandatory. Only invoice? No. Invoice or credit note or debit note. Sir, suppose I have the delivery challan. Should I prepare the delivery challan also in invoice portal? No. I have the bill of the supply. Suppose I am making the exempted item to registered party. Answer is no e-invoice applicable in case of the delivery challan, in case of the bill of supply, in case of import, in case of inward RCM. It is not applicable. It is applicable for your sale, for your outward supply. Invoice, debit note, credit note, which is being issued to B2B or export. Very, very important topic. You will definitely find the question. Doesn't matter 2 marks or 5 marks, but you will find question on the e-invoicing. Advantage, see, major advantage, you can read the theory. Major advantage that it will auto-populate in the GST return. It will auto-populate in e-way bill portal also. The recipient would able to see the transaction in the GSTR 2A. It will ease for government, or it will be controlled by the government. So no fake ITC is being taken. No fake invoicing is being made, generated, because everything is being routed through GST portal. So ITC would be controlled. Now, this is rule 48.4 and this is rule 48.5. Remember 48.4 and remember 48.5. 48.4, you remember that in the rule 48, we initially discussed that if you are issuing the invoice, it will be in triplicate. For goods and for services, it will be in duplicate. 48.4 saying that invoice shall be prepared by notified class of the registered person, uploading the detail as contained in INV01. It is e-invoice schema. So what word has to come in the answer? First IRP, second IRN, third QR code, fourth e-invoice schema, and within bracket you will write INV01. And greater than 50 crore, any preceding financial year 17-18 onward. If these words are there, no one will stop you, no one will reduce your question, reduce your marks. If these certain words are there, no problem. You are perfect in giving the reply. You can modify your language, no problem. But these words has to be there. And aggregate turnover. INV1 on the government portal, IRN in the prescribed manner, subject to such condition and restriction. Now 48.5 is saying if e-invoice is applicable and invoice is prepared other than e-invoice, every invoice in any manner other than 48.4, it means I have not followed the e-invoice schema. I have not followed through IRP portal. I have made manual tax invoice. Will it be applicable? This is answer. It is not applicable. Answer is no. The document which you prepared, it will not be called as invoice. Mansi, question is correct, but both are different. E-invoice is for the supply, e-way bill is for movement. Even many rules and systems are there, and then how fake ITCs get, still there are various, we all know that there are various masterminds which are trying to avoid, trying to overrule the provision and try to make the benefit or try to take the benefit of the lacuna of the systems. And that is the reason day by day the GST is being stringent and hardened and rule are being changed. And that is the only reason. Class of the person notified, we have discussed here. Yes, this is important. You can, if come, it will ask 2 marks. Who are exempted from e-invoicing? SEZ unit, please note only SEZ unit, not the SEZ developer. Insurance, banking company, financial institution, NBFC, GTA, and passenger transportation services. These are not required by the e-invoicing provisions. And one more, last, cinematographic films in multiplex screen. Please note one thing, that SEZ unit are only exempted, but if it is SEZ developer, they will abide, they will have to prepare the invoice according to 48.4, like e-invoicing provisions. How e-invoicing generated, so that I have explained. You can go to the theory, you can read the theory. Cancellation or amendment of the reported invoices, wherever needed, the seller can cancel IRN, and for an e-invoice already reported, by reporting to IRP within the specified time limit is 24 hours. Within 24 hours, you can cancel if there is any problem. Amendment of invoice already uploaded will be done only on the GST portal through GST-R1. So e-invoice cannot be amended if any particular is there wrong. If any particular is wrong, you can use amendment facility of the GST-R1. Question is good. Whether optional, I can use this facility. Question is good, that sir, any reported registered person haven't crossed 50 crore in any financial year can issue invoice. Answer is no. Optional, it is not available. Only if it is mandatory, then only you can register on IRP. Then only you can register on IRP. Only for your knowledge, not applicable for exam. The limit is reduced to 20 crore from 1st April 2022. From next month, the provision says that in any of the financial year it is 20 crore. I am just sharing only for your updation knowledge. It is not required for exam. Exam, you will need to consider 50 crore only. These are the IRP, invoice registration portal, and IRN. This is the IRN. So it would be the combination of the supplier GSTIN, customer GSTIN, date of invoice, invoice number. This would be the combination. And the last is, so what you can also remember this, what is the QR code consist? QR code consists of GSTIN number of the supplier, customer, invoice number, date of generation of invoice, value, number of line item, HSIN code, unique invoice reference number, date of the generation of IRN. Can raise nahi sir? Rohini, compulsory. Rohini, compulsory for B2B or export. If there is debit note or credit note, it has to be routed through e-invoice only. Last is dynamic QR code on B2C invoices. Dynamic QR code on B2C invoices. If aggregate turnover exceed 500 crore in any preceding financial year, then on B2C invoices, dynamic QR code has to be there. What is the meaning of the dynamic QR code? What is the meaning of the dynamic QR code? The meaning of dynamic QR code is means payment through digital mode. Payment through digital mode. What it is saying, that the purpose of this provision is to enable and encourage the digital payment where buyer can scan the dynamic QR code and make the payment from mobile wallet directly. So they are saying if your turnover is greater than 500 crore, turnover is greater than 500 crore in any of the preceding financial year, you will have the dynamic QR code on your tax invoice for B2C transaction. Sir, for B2B is already covered in e-invoice. For export, already covered in e-invoice. So for those transactions for which e-invoice is applicable, there is no applicability of the dynamic QR code. For rest B2C transaction, yes, you will report, you will have the dynamic QR code on the invoice. Again, On which case it is not applicable? Almost same. Insurance, banking company, financial institution, NBFC, GTA, passenger transportation services, person supplying exhibition, that, but this is important. This is an additional, not covered in the e-invoice, not relaxed in the e-invoice, but it is relaxed from dynamic QR code. Supplier of OIDAR services. However, I think OIDAR is not covered in your inter level, so it is in final level. Only remember the point. That's it. It is, Sunil Dubey, absolutely correct. It's too long. It's too long because it will be system generated. Just you need to affix along with QR code. No dynamic QR code in export. Parameter on the dynamic QR code. Dynamic QR code shall contain the following information: supplier GSTIN number, UPI ID, paying bank account, invoice number, total invoice value, GST amount, etc. So from my side, this today chapter is completed. Let me cover the question on this point. Let me cover the question which is being asked, which is being there in my slide, in my PPT. Some question is there. So I'm waiting for your any doubt. Let me complete this question, and parallelly I will wait. And once you will ask any doubt, we'll give the answer. And then after that, we will have the 10-minute quick round of question answer. Cancellation of IRN. So within 24 hours, you can cancel your e-invoice. Cancel means you can after 24 hours, you cannot cancel. You cannot cancel. Simply, you can make the amendment in the GSTR1. Vedant, hash means this number. I hope you have seen this number. This number would be there in the e-invoice number, IRN. E-invoice is not issued, then there is penalty. Yes, penalty is there, but I will not cover because it is not in your syllabus. Yes, penalty would be there under section 122. Also, there would be penalty. So I will not covering right now, but yes, penalty is there. Give me the answer for question number 7. What is the concept of invoice? How it is generated? Just I hope it is clear. Class of the person notified to mandatory issue invoice. Person exempted from e-invoicing. Advantage of e-invoicing. I hope it is clear. Question 8, no. Determine in which following case e-invoice is applicable. Whether in this case e-invoice is applicable, whether in this case is applicable. In both it is applicable, only one or both or none of the case. In which case e-invoice is applicable? Please answer. What is the difference between e-invoice and e-way bill? Sandeep, difference in e-invoice and e-way bill is e-invoice for making the supply. So invoice like invoice. E-invoice means invoice. You are raising the tax invoice. In that manner, you are raising the e-invoice. E-way bill only for the movement of the goods for transit purpose, so that if proper officer catch, then you had to prepare for movement. You had to prepare the e-way bill. So e-way bill only for the transit purpose, nothing to do with your supplier, customer, etc. And tax invoice would be for taking the payment. Invoice would be applicable whether value is more than 50,000 or less than 50,000, but e-invoicing is not applicable if the value is less than 50,000. E-way bill is not applicable if the value is less than 50,000. Next, like B2B, e-invoicing is applicable, but B2C, e-invoice is not applicable. E-way bill would be prepared whether it is for B2B or B2C. Advantage of e-invoicing. Advantage we have discussed. Hiralal Thakkar, we have discussed. Sorry, Hiral, I'm so sorry. Inderpal, for B2B and export transaction starting from aggregate turnover exceeding 50 crore. Absolutely correct. I am confirming your sentence. So tell me your answer, whether in this case e-invoicing is applicable or in this case e-invoicing is applicable, or both the case it is applicable. in the preceding financial year. Na? Case 1 you are saying applicable. What about case 2? Example 2, is it applicable or not applicable? It is not applicable because first it is a bank, and second the turnover they are talking about current financial year, not the preceding financial year. Great. I hope you can explain the requirement of the dynamic QR code and non-applicability we have discussed. Is dynamic QR code applicable to the supplier who issue the invoice to unregistered person? Yes or no? Right, Khushi? Rohini and Inderpal, both case it is not applicable. It is applicable on case 1 because case 2, the current year turnover exceed 51 crore, not the preceding year. Second, the supplier is bank, and in case of the bank, it is not applicable. I hope it is clear. Sunil Dubey, absolutely correct. You have catch correct point, and also you should catch that point. The supplier is bank, and in case of the bank, it is not applicable. E-invoice provision is not applicable in case of the bank. Correct. So if dynamic QR code is applicable, who issue the invoice to unregistered? Answer is yes. If aggregate turnover 500 crore, and in case of the B2C transaction, it is applicable. In case of the B2B and export, it is not applicable. We have covered almost all. So all are ready. All are ready for having the quick revision. Whether all are ready for having the quick revision, just confirm so that I can start. Only for 10 minutes. Just give me the quick confirmation that all are ready for quick revision to the entire chapter. We'll ask some question. You need to give the reply. Question number 1. Question number 1. What is the last day to issue the invoice? What is the last day to issue the invoice for the supply of the goods if there is a movement? What is the last day to issue the, what is the last date to issue the tax invoice for supply the goods which involve the movement? Give me the answer. Waiting for your answer. Question number 2. Give me the answer for the question number 1. Date of the removal before or at the time. Absolutely correct. No 6 months, no 30 days, no return filing. Vrinda, in case one supplier are made to the unregistered person, then also no. Invoicing is only for B2B. Vrinda, not 30 days. Vrinda VED, not 30 days. The right answer is date of or before or at the time of the removal of the goods. Absolutely correct. Question 2. Listen my question carefully. If telecom company are making the supply to its customer, what is the last date to issue the invoice for its supply of service? Very important question. Telecom company is making the supply to the normal customer. What is the last date? 30 days, 45 days, or quarter? Option 30 days, 45 days, or quarter, or if telecom company are making the supply to its customer, the invoice would be prepared by the telecom company within 30 days, 45 days, or within quarter, or select any answer, 30, 45 or quarter. What is the last date to issue the invoice for the supply of the service? The right answer is 30 days. Why not 45? Because in the 45, banking, financial institution, NBFC and insurance are covered, not telecom. Not telecom. And why not quarter? Because in quarter, they are talking about supply made between distinct person. Supply made between distinct person. Here I am talking about they are not making the supply within the same pan. They are making the supply to simple customer. I am not talking about distinct person. That is the reason quarter will also not applicable. Therefore, it will be 30 days. I hope it is clear. Almost all the answer was wrong. Reason, I do agree, because I have made the confusion. That is the problem. So I hope it is clear. Kindly confirm. Is it clear? Is it clear? Kindly confirm. Next question. In case of reverse charge, if supplier is registered, whether payment voucher to be prepared by customer or not. In case of the RCM, if supplier is registered, in case of the RCM, if supplier is registered, then recipient required to make the payment voucher or not. If the recipient, if the supplier is registered, whether recipient need to prepare the payment voucher or not. In case of the RCM transactions, please confirm. Please confirm. In case RCM, the supplier is registered, whether payment voucher to be prepared by the recipient or not. Kindly confirm. The answer is yes, payment voucher need to be prepared. Why payment voucher need to be prepared? Because in case of the payment voucher, we have discussed whether supplier is registered or unregistered, payment voucher need to be prepared. In case of the self invoice, there was one twist. If supplier is registered, not applicable. If supplier is unregistered, then only it is applicable. I hope it is clear. Next question. What is the turnover limit for e-invoicing? 100 crore, 50 crore, 20 crore. What is the limit? 100 crore, 50 crore or 20 crore for e-invoicing? For e-invoicing, what is the limit? 100 crore, 50 crore or 20 crore? The answer is 50 crore. Answer is 50 crore, which is applicable for your. Next question. If in case B2C transaction, please listen my question. The question is how many digits of HSIN code should be there if aggregate turnover is greater than 5 crore and supply is made to unregistered customer. Supply is made to unregistered customer, supplier aggregate turnover greater than 5 crore. Question is how many digits should be there on the tax invoice? Option, not mandatory. Second option, 4 digit. Third option, 6 digit. Fourth option, 8 digit. Absolutely right, Namrata. The answer is absolutely correct. 6 digit. Absolutely correct. 6 digit. 6 digit. Whether dynamic QR code is applicable for export, 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 yes or no? Dynamic QR code is applicable for export. Dynamic QR code is applicable for export, yes or no? Whether dynamic QR code is applicable for export. Answer is no. Dynamic QR code not for export. Yeah, absolutely correct. Why it is not applicable? Because for dynamic QR code, because for export and B2B transaction, e-invoice is applicable. Therefore, dynamic QR code is not applicable. What is the time limit to issue the revised invoice? What is the maximum time limit to issue the revised invoice? What is the maximum number of days is available to issue the revised invoice? What is the maximum time limit to issue the revised invoice? What is the maximum time limit to issue the revised invoice? Revised tax invoice. What is the maximum time limit to issue the revised tax invoice? What is the maximum time limit to issue the revised tax invoice? Answer is, what is the maximum time limit to issue the revised tax invoice? Answer is 30 days, 1 month. Last question for the day. Last question for the day. Before that, please confirm. I hope everything is okay. You are enjoying the class. Please confirm you are enjoying the class. I hope you all are enjoying the class. Just confirm. I hope you all are enjoying the class. Any problem, any concern, please let me know. I will make sure about the internet connection. The last question for the day. Last question for the day. In case supplier is registered, in case supplier is registered and customer is registered, can we issue invoice come below the supply? Can we issue invoice come below the supply? If customer and supplier both are registered, can we issue invoice come below the supply? Question is, if my customer is registered, can I issue invoice come below the supply for making the taxable as exempt supply both together? Can I issue the invoice come below the supply? This is my last question. The right answer, rule 46 capital A. Rule 46 capital A talk about, rule 46 capital A talk about, if my customer recipient is unregistered, then only I can issue invoice come below the supply, otherwise not. Now I am putting the focus on the question. If you have any doubt, please ask. Namrata, right? No dynamic QR code for export. Rakesh, right? Pooja, I think you are talking about invoice come below the supply. No, you cannot issue, because the customer is registered. Abhishek, it can be issued if the recipient is composition dealer. No, reasoning is not correct. Refer rule 46 capital A, wherein we talked about if supplier is registered and customer is unregistered, making the supply to the unregistered, then he can issue single document named as invoice come below the supply. Please explain once receipt voucher for unregistered party. See, receipt voucher is not for registered or unregistered. Receipt voucher, suppose I am a supplier, you are a customer, you are making the advance payment to me. Advance payment, I have to issue receipt voucher. What is that for URP? We have discussed if transaction is covered in the reverse charge. You are a customer, I am a supplier, you are recipient. You will pay the tax. If I am registered, no manual. If I am registered, no self invoice by you. If I am unregistered, then you need to prepare self invoice. Then we discuss about the payment voucher, where in case of RCM transaction, whether supplier is registered or unregistered, recipient will always make the payment voucher. I hope these things we have discussed. Thank you so much for all your participation. Lovely comment. Any other doubt which I have left, which is being unanswered, please let me know. Is there yeah, Vrinda Agrawal. Now, very good question. Is there any RCM in case of e-invoice? Very good question. Now, let's say I am advocate and you are customer. You are my recipient. I'm issuing the tax invoice. Do I need to prepare the tax invoice according to e-invoice? If my aggregate turnover exceed the 50 crore rupees in any of the preceding financial year, even though my outward supply, remember, will repeat. Very important question. I am talking about supplier who is registered, but transaction is covered in the reverse charge. Means supplier is not paying the tax. Still, he need to prepare the invoice according to e-invoice. There is one exception, that is GTA. If you remember that which class of the registered person are not covered, see, banking company, NBFC, GTA, transportation, and cinematographic films. These are exception. These are not covered in the e-invoicing. Otherwise, if supplier is registered, even though transaction is covered in the reverse charge, he need to prepare. But whether self-invoice will be prepared under e-invoice? Answer is no. Because e-invoice would be applicable only for the outward, not for inward. I hope it is clear. Kindly confirm. Thank you very much. Good night to all of you. If you have still any question, we will discuss in the next class. Vrinda, sir, please explain your first question of invoice. In first case, there were also supplied to the unregistered. If my question I am not remembering, repeating that, if supply is made to the registered, then only e-invoice. If supply made to unregistered, no e-invoicing. So probably I have not seen that particular point, missed. If question number 1 talking about B2C transaction, to that extent it is not applicable, but for B2B it is applicable. Udin Kumar Chaudhary, no, I am receiving your first comment. I have not received any reply. You are saying none of the answer, might be because of that only, because I am seeing your first point. Now I have seen your first query. Before that, I have not seen any query. Can we conclude our today class? Thank you very much. Good night to all of you.